Hello, what's going on guys? In this video I'll be showing you guys which teams should you use your Lauma in. I'm just going to be giving you the general teams that are going to work for her, the type of teams. I'm going to tell you how they work and which teammates are going to be best for each team type. Before we continue that though, if you're planning to get Lauma or her teammates, I'd recommend checking out LD Shop. It's a cheap, fast, and secure type of website where you can get different games currencies including Genshin Impact for 20% cheaper or more. Check it out in the link in the description or the pinned comment. But yeah, back to Lauma's teams. Her kit in general is going to be centered around two main type of teams. The first type is going to be bloom teams. Bloom teams are just, the bloom reaction that's going to pop up on the ground when you do your hydro and then dendro. And then Lauma is going to be able to turn it into lunar bloom, and that's the biggest thing about her kit. And it's going to be enabling this reaction to crit, and that's going to result in a lot more damage. So this is the first main type of team you're going to be able to do. Obviously to play this team, you'll need a core of a normal bloom team, and then you'll just add in Lauma. That's basically it. So usually for a bloom team, you'd want Lauma first, and then you want Nilou. Nilou is going to be hydro, so she's going to be enabling the bloom reaction, but then she's also going to be pretty important in any bloom team. She's going to be like sort of a base of a team in general, and it's going to be very recommended to get her for any bloom team and also lunar bloom teams for Lauma. She's going to be able to convert the normal dendro things into bountiful cores from her kit, and they're going to explode like quickly and deal more damage and stuff like that, so she's going to make bloom teams much better. So I would put Nilou in like a side of her own in the team, honestly. I'd say she's going to be very important for any bloom team. She's going to matter a lot, but if you don't have her, you can basically use any other hydro, for example like Kokomi or whatever. I'm going to tell you more hydros in a bit, but in general Nilou is going to be pretty important. She'll need a slot on her own in the team in my personal opinion. The next thing after that, you probably just want to get a second hydro just to make sure your hydro application is going to be consistent enough, and any hydros are going to be working basically that can apply hydro outfield. So you have like your Shingsho, Yellen for example, you can use Aino, you can use Kokomi for healing. Any hydros who can apply some hydro and give you some utility are going to be pretty good. The last slot after that, you can use another dendro if you want, or any flex basically. You probably just want to use another dendro just for the resonance and stuff like that, but it doesn't really matter. The best options are going to be someone like Nahida for example. She's going to be buffing the elemental mastery and also applying dendro, giving you damage. Beiju is also going to be pretty good if you don't have a sustain or a healer on your team. All of these are going to be good options, but you basically just need a flex. The core of the team is just going to be Lauma and Nilou. Other than that, you can manage with very different characters, but Lauma and Nilou are definitely needed in these types of teams. Nilou is going to be speeding up and adding more damage to the bloom, and then Lauma is going to be allowing it to crit, which is going to be able to deal much more damage than your average bloom team. The next main type of teams you'd want to use on your Lauma is going to be a Hyperbloom team. In this team, the dendro cores you had, they're just going to be converted into Hyperbloom when you touch them with Electro, and then Lauma is going to be converting it into Lunar Bloom, which is going to be dealing much more damage. So it's basically the same thing. You just want to add an Electro to speed up the reaction instead of Nilou, and that's basically it. In this team in general, as I said, it's basically the same idea for a bloom team, but you just want to introduce an Electro, and this Electro just can be either on field or off field. It doesn't really matter as much, but the core of the team is basically just going to be Lauma, obviously, and then you want a Hydro for you to create the blooms. In that case, you can either use Yellen, Shingsho, Aino for example. I definitely recommend using a Hydro who applies a decent amount of Hydro off field, because it's probably going to be your only Hydro. You don't want to use two Hydros here probably. You could, but it's usually not recommended. So usually you just want to go for one Hydro who can apply good amounts of Hydro off field consistently. The second thing you'd want is an Elemental Mastery built Electro character. Your options here are kind of limited. Usually you just want Kuki if you want someone off field, maybe Fischl, but it's less optimal, or you'd want Raiden Shogun built with Elemental Mastery if you want a player on field. The last character is also sort of a flex. You can use just really whatever you like. So you can use a second Hydra as I said before if you want to. You can use Nahida for example. That's probably the best option. You can go for someone like Inefa even. If you want to also introduce the lunar charge into the mix, it's really a broad term. You can start playing with these teams in general, but the core thing of the team is just going to be Lauma, a Hydro, and then an Elemental Mastery built Electro. And yeah, these are going to be the two main type of teams you'd want to use Lauma in. This is literally what her kit is made for. She's just going to be converting the bloom or hyper bloom damage into lunar bloom and allowing it to crit and buffing it with a huge amount, which is going to be pretty good. You can also start throwing her as like a damage adder her and some teams that are mainly not going to be built around her, but she can add value there. For example, spread teams in general are going to be a good example for that. So you'd usually have like a Dendro main DPS, like Alhaitham for example, or Tignery. Those are going to be like the main options. And then you're going to have an Electro. Usually it's just going to be Kuki, and this is like the main core of the spread team. In that case, you can add Lauma, for example. She's going to be dealing damage off field, and then add in just more Dendro in general. And then you can add a Hydro for Lauma, for example, Yellen, Xingqiu, or Fiorina, for example, if you want her to buff your main DPS. All of these options are going to be viable, but that's going to allow your Lauma to be dealing much more damage and helping the team's overall damage. And these teams are going to perform very well. Now, the main DPSs are not going to be the main performer in the team, but with Lauma, she can bring them up to very good places in the meta right now. And you can definitely use these types of spread teams in general. They're definitely going to be pretty good, and they're going to perform very well in today's meta. You just want a Dendro on fielder, and then obviously you want to spread for them to deal more damage, and then Lauma can just do her thing off field. Whenever she can convert the damage to Lunar Bloom, she's going to do that, and that's going to result in much more damage, which is pretty good. Now, the last type of teams is going to be burgeon teams. Those are going to be a little clunky, so I don't think those are going to be the best teams, but it's also a core thing in her kit. She's also going to be buffing burgeon damage and allowing it to crit and just do more damage in general. So you can throw her at burgeon teams. It's going to be a little uncomfortable to play with the explosions and stuff like that, but you can make it work. And these types of teams, obviously you want Lauma, and then you want a Pyro, for example, just like Toma, for example, or Dea. Those are probably your best options. I don't really see any other good options, especially for sustain concerns. You'd either want a shielder or like a damage mitigator like Dea, for example. So you probably just want to stick with Toma or Dea for your Pyros. You'd want a Hydro for sure for you to get the Dendro course. So you'd want either probably like Yellen or Xingqiu, because you'd want a consistent like Hydro source, especially because you're probably going to play one Hydro. And then you can add in a flex, for example, like Naida, just for the usual elemental mastery buff. It's going to be pretty valuable, and the damage bonus. You can add a healer, for example, or whatever. But usually this is the core of the burgeon team. Your Lauma and the Hydro and Naida, for example, are going to be creating the Dendro cores, and then the Pyros are going to be triggering the burgeon reactions, and then Lauma is just going to be buffing this damage. So it's going to be allowing it to crit and stuff like that, which is pretty good. Those are really the main type of teams for Lauma in general. Now, obviously, there are going to be more like a little off-meta teams. I'm not really going to mention those here because we can go on forever, and they're usually suboptimal. But if you want to play your Lauma properly, those are the type of teams you'd want to include her in and get her for. She's going to be providing huge utility, huge damage increases, and it's going to make those Bloom, Hyperbloom teams, and even burgeon teams much better than usual. But yeah, let me know what teams you guys are going to be playing her in the comments. I'm pretty sure I'm going to see some very interesting teams, so I'm actually going to read the comments and look at what teams you guys are going to be playing. Please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.